Hello. Today in Bloxburg, I'm conducting secret research that I cannot yet divulge. It is a surprise. Last time was the first experiment in a series of planned operations, but quite frankly, in retrospect, I didn't really learn much. I more so just lost my mind and maybe a small amount of money. But regardless, today is a new day. It is the second experiment. I want to take on the challenge of building a split-level home. It would seem easy, just looking at pictures of them. They all appear to be a floor plan that Bloxburg would easily be able to adapt. So we're going to choose one that I think would be worthwhile and go from there. In an effort to date the video immediately, and maybe to procrastinate the reason why we're even playing the game in the first place right now, I want to check out the new courthouse. A courtroom. I remember the last time I was in one of these. Okay. Surely one of these. Really? Let's set through? Okay. Surely a shovel, right? Stop a shovel. No? Okay, how about a drill? Oh, okay, that one isn't allowed. How about a chainsaw? Oh, okay. So what I gather is that essentially the courthouse update added the illusion of a governing body, but not an actual government. This is actually good news for us, as I've not been following building codes. I didn't even get a permit last time. Alright, let's get going. So as a byproduct from last time, our sidewalk is going to be a little bit expensive. Goodbye, $10,000. I've decided to put this house in the opposite corner from the previous home. Just because of, I guess, just how I'm thinking about it. How it's going to work out. The terrain's going to have to be really high on this left side, and I'd rather not deal with that with the previous home. Finally, walls. Last time I couldn't use walls or floors when building, so this is very much a welcome change of pace. So simple. So easy. Now I just have to choose what window door styles we're going to use in the build. And I want to be careful because this is kind of what's going to determine what the rest of the build's going to look like. But hey, I've got a question here, and this is no way related to the secret research that I may or may not be conducting, but how do you guys feel about Bloxburg's window and doors? On one hand, I appreciate that there are many styles available, as they can be fairly versatile in their execution, with different art styles and such. On the other hand, why are there so many art styles? You think back to The Sims, and it's all cohesive, they work well with each other. I just mean, and the scaling and proportion is always kind of weird as well. There's a lot of ways I wish they were more customizable, but alright, I know what you're thinking. It's a split-level home. One side has one story, the other side has two stories. It'd be so much easier to build the two-story side with the walls, and then build the single-story side with basic parts. You're doing it wrong, which I can see why you might say that. Except I have an expert retort prepared, ready to go. Nuh-uh. I actually think that would have been a better idea, but we're here now. This is actually a home design I disliked for the longest time. I've always had more of an affinity towards older architecture. They just did things in cooler ways. Like, you look at a lot of carpenters' houses and how they trim out their homes and their roofs. It's just very different. I mean, I eventually came around to it. I wish I could tell you why, but I think it's just a matter of appreciating the mundane. These homes were not meant to be suburban masterpieces, and I think constantly chasing the exotic would leave these designs that we're all familiar with behind. I think of it in terms of my archival study. That is, if you're only focused on what you're interested in, you're going to miss out. You're going to miss out on understanding the larger system. This is how I've been able to make my own original discoveries in otherwise stagnant fields. And that's some of the best advice that I can give to anybody, for building especially. It's not about the chase to build one architectural marvel after another. Self-improvement's not necessarily found by taking on an even harder challenge than before. It's understanding the building as the system that it is, as a structure. A willingness to portray the ordinary with the same love and care as the revered. So I'm very much a proponent of understanding design as a complete principle rather than a disparate collection of tips and tricks. For here, I decided to go with like a stepped sort of retaining wall for the garden, but I wasn't sure what approach to terrain I was going to use for the plot. I really need to go and find some videos of different methods. You know, that's kind of how we get better. It's not just principle and understanding design, it's also, you know, understanding how you can use the tool that you're using. And finally, way too long in, we have a cohesive look as to what the house is going to look like. I'm sure a lot of you are shocked at the state of this challenge. Look, I know the basic parts in this game make literally anything possible, given just enough patience. You know, I even ran into like a little camper build today, which was a build that was actually on my list. And I'm surprised to see it, but I'm thankful to cross it off. I am fascinated a little bit by it though, just seeing the interior, but can't get distracted. It's a shame that Bloxburg doesn't allow for, you know, actual roof framing, as I think a more realistic approach to the roof in how it's shaped, trimmed out, could actually make a huge difference for players rather than having to try and make my own. But I've complained enough for one day. I'll stop now. Gardening. It's a beautiful pursuit. Not only is it to breathe the breath of life alongside the foundations of our home, but it's also to cover up things that I'm too lazy to fix. Perfect. I've also opted to make the path a slope. Let's just pretend that there's no potential for snow, ice, rain, or oil spills on this massive ramp into the house. I suppose you could add a handrail and it'd be fine, but you could. I'm not going to. Alright, it's time to get terrain out of the way. I've been dreading it, but I've decided to put the spheres up to the test again, mostly just because I want to see this through, and I'm just kind of curious to see if it's a good system, or I wholeheartedly recommend it. The system works rather well in the situation that we used it before, on a relatively flat plane, and it can do, you know, slight hills and such, you know, steady inclines, but not what we've got here. At least not in a satisfying way for myself. I'm curious if anyone else has used this approach and has some recommendations. I think the best thing you can do in Bloxburg is to be happy with approximations, with imperfection, especially when working with basic shapes. It's very difficult to line them up properly. And if you can't, I've got a solution. Open up the garden menu and put a tree there, and no one will know. Well, there's also another way you can hide things you don't like. Just cut them out of the video. I could have sworn something's wrong here, but I don't know what happened to the footage, so I'm sorry. I don't know. I guess we'll never know. Just don't look at the back of the house. It's definitely not up to code. Somebody cut that out. And so I'd say the challenge's end is within reach. We just have to build the interior. I know my last build is also missing an interior, and I'm overdue on that. I swear I'll finish one of them in the next video. I feel like we can't just keep doing exteriors. Thank you as always for watching, and thank you especially for watching until the end.